Good morning and welcome to the Muscatine County Board of Supervisors meeting. Today is Monday, January 18th, 9 a.m. First item on the agenda is to review the agenda.
Move to approve as presented. Second.
Moved by Jeff, seconded by Nathan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. The next item is discussion and possible action to approve the application for historic preservation of Iowa Rural Revitalization Grant in the amount of $125,000 with the requested county match of $53,550 for the historic jail project. This is with Lisa Wurzbauer.
Yes, thank you. Okay. Can I just take this? Okay. My name is Lisa Wurzbauer. I am a member of the Muscatine County Historic Preservation Commission as a volunteer. For those of you on the board who are a little newer, just a little bit of history about the historic jail project. I've been on the commission since 2013. So the background is, this is the historic jail which sits just down the street here. It is currently listed on the National Register of Historic Places. It's a very significant part of county history for a variety of reasons. Number one, there are residents who actually lived in the jail. It documents the correctional practices that took place here in Muscatine. It has a very unique architecture, so it is the last remaining building with this type of Greek Revival architecture in the county. And a complete history of the structure has already been documented, including oral interviews with the last living resident of the jail. So the goal for this building is to use the structure. It's been stabilized already because it houses the county geothermal system. And so there are maintenance costs associated with having this structure. So I personally feel, and the commission does, that it should provide some sort of function for the county. We want to put it into use. We feel that it can generate revenue. We feel that it can increase tourism, provide a service for the citizens of the county. When you look at tourism studies, two of the top drivers are architecture and culture. So we feel that it could be used, the initial renderings and the scope of the project right now is to use it as for multiple functions, including a museum space that would complement the current county offering. So we have a lot of museums in our county, and this would complement that portfolio. Our commission could use it as an office space. Right now, we currently do not have an office, so we meet, wherever we can reserve a room. But it would give us an actual home. We could use it as an event rental space for fundraising events, and just as a location to generate general awareness of our county brand. It'd be a nice looking facility. We could meet with citizens there. We could hold town halls. We could hold public events, and also showcase the history of the jail, and then any artifacts from around the county that we're archiving there. So to date, what has happened is the facility has been stabilized, and that's been a long process of working with various architects, etc. I applied for a CLG grant last summer, and in December we found out we were awarded the grant, so that is going to cover the cost to have an architect get bid-ready construction documents put together for us. So the building is stabilized. The next step is completing the phase 1 construction, which would put the building into use, and the grant that I wrote for and that we were awarded will cover the costs of that preparation. So, a little bit about our commission. Like I said, this could be a home for us, and well, why do we deserve that? So, number one, our commission has been around since about 2012, and really a little bit before that, but really active since 2012, 2013. We have fundraised over $2 million. Most of that's directly gone to infrastructure projects around the county. We've completed over a dozen grant applications. Total dollars awarded is probably somewhere over $750,000. We have public meetings. We've partnered with many nonprofits around the county to support them and elevate their groups and their brands. We have done a county survey of all the historic sites in the county. Our commission has grown in size and in volunteer network. So we have more members now, and we have a volunteer network now. And frankly, we get asked to support more projects than we can say yes to. So pretty much at every meeting we have, some group in the county is asking us for support. So we really have to prioritize our docket to make sure that we are successful. So the grant that we would like to apply for is called the Historic Preservation Rural Revitalization Grant. So in October, the Department of Interior of the federal government released funds, a one-time release of funds for historic preservation, and Iowa was awarded about $600,000 of that. So they open it up in October. You can apply, you have to apply for at least $75,000 and up to a max of $125,000. They're probably going to award 5 or 6 projects. And I am writing the grant. Obviously I know that, I'm working on a grant. Depending on what happens here today, we will submit or not. But we're going to ask for the full $125,000. We have to have a 30% match, which is where the $53,500 comes from. So that would give us a total project budget of about $178,000, which would get us nearly complete or complete through phase 1 of the construction project. So this would be a huge shot in the arm where we would be using this facility.
Lisa, does that, I'm sorry to
Yeah,
interrupt.
go ahead. No,
Does
please.
that 30% match, is that required to come from the government entity, or is that can come from anywhere?
It can come from anywhere.
Okay.
We have to be, the only people who can apply for this grant are either a CLG or a local government. It has to be a property owned, and a lot of historic properties are owned by private individuals or various friends groups, organizations. So we have a unique advantage that the county owns this building. And so, but, the reality is, at this point in time, we're in a unique situation. The grant was released in October, and so we need the appropriation in order to apply. We want to submit the grant on February 1st, and basically, I think that we have a significant competitive advantage. Number one, I do anticipate that there will be a weakened competitive field. Frankly, a lot of nonprofits aren't even operating right now. A lot of volunteer groups, as soon as COVID hit, they just basically shut down because they couldn't, it's really hard to find a way forward. A lot of us are funded by donors. Our group itself is significantly, obviously, funded by donors. Our county appropriation is usually $500 to $5,000, and we've obviously completed millions of dollars in projects. But that's just not the reality for us right now. So for us, the way to move forward is with grants, really. That's our option right now to keep moving forward. So I feel like the competitive field will be weakened. Also, there will be less properties that qualify for this type of grant than what we typically face during the application process. And so that's a little, information around the grant and how it works. We have until May 31st of 2023 to complete the project and utilize all the funds. So the why behind this, why I think we should do this, so basically what we are asking for is for you to increase our appropriation. Like I said, for roughly 9 years, we've been using around anywhere from $500 a year to $5,000, and we're asking you to increase our appropriation for this year. So that's why I'm coming to you now through the appropriation process.
And that seems like it's more than 30% of the 125. Is that correct, or is it a higher
It's
amount?
30% of the entire project.
I see.
So 178,000, we're kicking in 53, they're kicking in the 125.
Understood, thank you.
So the why behind it is, like I said, I think we have a couple unique advantages right now. Number two, this would move the project to nearly completion. We would have a functioning facility that we could start using, which would be a major catalyst to fundraising. We want to use this facility to host donors and bring people in to help fund ongoing projects at the building, but also to fund other projects that we're doing throughout the county. And if we actually, right now we meet with people in their living rooms, or we go to businesses and meet with them in their boardrooms, it would be really powerful to be able to bring them on site and show them a project and ask for money in our own home. Also, without the match, if we don't apply, we basically give up $125,000. I mean, I feel like it's a good investment if we can put $53,000 of our own money in and get $125,000 in return. And then lastly, 2 more points. First of all, our commission has a good track record. We're very fiscally responsible, we're very fiscally conservative. And we've done a lot with what we've been given in the past. Second of all, this is just the first step in the process. So, you know, when money like this is given out, whether you're giving 53 or the federal government's giving 125, it's all about is this a good return for the taxpayers, which I am obviously a taxpayer in this county. And so the grant application will take well over 80 hours. I'll document all kinds of details, budget, etc. But the bottom line is, the reviewers are no joke. I mean, this will go through a very stringent evaluation process because it has to prove that this has broad impact for the citizens of our local area, of the state of Iowa, and really it has to show benefit to the federal government as well. And so if you say yes to this today, and I apply for the grant on the 1st, and we get another yes from that group, then I feel confident we obviously made the right decision.
Lisa, the $178,000, I recall, it's been a couple of years back, you had presented to this board a series of projects for that building. Can you just highlight, so this 178, was that architect spending the cost on that?
Right.
This next phase, and this phase would be building out that bottom floor, like handicap accessible.
Exactly. So we had 3 phases. The first one was just to stabilize the structure. That had to be done because it houses the geothermal system. The second phase, when I took over this project as project lead, I sat down with Mike Nolan, our partner, and said, okay, look, we need to do as much as we possibly can for as little amount of money as possible. And we need to be realistic and do what's necessary. And so we worked on a budget. The next 2 phases are, the first phase is the whole main entry space. So the front entrance, which will have some modern features, some glass, some steel, but also like an ADA restroom. It'll have a big open space for the museum, office space, those types of things to get that main floor. The second phase, which wouldn't have to be done right away, but if could be done down the road, would be for storage and archives. There's 2 back rooms that could be completed for more museum and showcase space, and then finishing out the upstairs for more storage and archives. I mean, we get requests from county residents probably almost at every meeting that say we have stuff that's unique, it's important, it's historic, and they want us to take it. I'm not saying we're gonna say yes to all that, but we have no doubt that we would have a collection of material to get started and do certain work with, like the museums in Muscatine, and there's a museum over in Durant to work with different exhibits, etc. But those are the phases. The first was stabilization. This would be to get the main space done, which is the most important space because that allows us to bring people in. And then the third space would be a continuation, outdoor space down the road, but we want to get people into it as soon as possible.
And Sherry, this may be a question for you, the general services usage of that facility, and so I know at one point the work release program would possibly use part of that for storage and maintenance, and general services had some janitorial or some stuff in there. Are we completely out of that now with the new facility and everything?
Right, I don't know if they have everything moved out yet because there was no time frame.
No, they never will.
There was no hurry. Once we give them a date, they'll have everything out.
Yeah, that's the way maintenance crews are.
Yep.
You gotta put a line in the
They moved
sand.
what they needed, and some of the rest of it's still sitting there, so, but
And-
we'll get it out.
And I've been working with Mike Nolan. Obviously, I started the grant. I started the grant application, knowing I may have some time put in, and we wouldn't move forward, but I had no choice. So I have had a lot of discussions with him and I feel very confident that he and I will have a plan that if we make this investment, that by the time we're done with this and the grant funds, that we will have, a facility that we can start using.
Lisa, you mentioned about the 125.
Yes,
Also, you said that the potential could be only 75 as well?
well, no, you have to apply for at least 75,
Okay.
but, and a maximum of 125. So,
The state will determine if it'll be 75 or they can.
if we ask for the 125, that is what we are considered for,
Okay.
is 125,000. And the budget that I put together, will roll up to that, yep.
So the grant will be either all or nothing,
Yeah.
125 or a goose egg.
That's typically how the grants work. And this is a new grant that we, hasn't been in existence before, so I have been talking with the state of Iowa, and, they have to make a recommendation to, for us as a CLG in good standing, and so I'll be spending a lot of time with them this week, just finalizing details and making sure that everything is accurate, but yes, that is my understanding.
This 178, it seems to be the maximum amount, when you take the maximum 125 plus the 30% match.
Mhm.
How confident are you that that 178 is going to, cleave closely to the dollar amounts required of the project? Are we right on, are we over, are we under, do you think?
Honestly, I think we're a little bit under. Really for phase one, we really were targeting around 200, but I think that, I'm always writing for, I have 2 other grants I'm gonna be writing for this spring. I'm confident we can close the gap, and I'm also confident, like I said to Mike this week, if we get this money, we'll keep writing for grants, we'll keep fundraising, we've done letter writing campaigns, we're gonna keep trying to get money, but worst case scenario, cause I like to have a plan A, B, C, D, all the way to Z, so worst case scenario, we have to have something viable at 178, and he said that we can sit down and scrub the plans and make something happen. And so, but, like I said, I already have 2 other grants I'm gonna apply for this spring that could get us over the 200 or well over the 200 mark. And we
And-
have 2 years to use all the funds, so COVID is hopefully going away, and then we can start sitting down face to face with people. We do have donors who are interested in this project.
Great. The different phases that you mentioned,
Mhm.
assuming everything goes to plan, everything's all said and done, what kind of outlay are you looking at upon total completion of all your phases? And what
If we
total
did
outlay-
everything,
And from us, what would you do, or from the county, I should say, what would you?
well,
Both yours and the county's.
I think for us, I guess at I can't speak on behalf of the whole commission, but I think they're confident with me making a judgment call. But what we're hoping is you help us with the funding, especially if we can get this grant and get to the 200. And then we have a very robust fundraising strategy that we have written, a fundraising plan that we have written. We have some interested donors. It's just nothing has been happening in the past 9 months. And so, our goal is to get the building functional and then use our fundraising strategy for further phases. So we have club levels developed, et cetera. Let's say we wanna, depending on what interest a certain donor has, maybe somebody really wants to name the outdoor space after a family member. And then that part of the project would move forward. But there wouldn't be anything left in the project that was a have to have. So we would have less pressure to, use fundraising dollars and longer timelines to implement that
So
part.
this
those
is your
parts.
bootstrap money.
Pretty much. And honestly, I wouldn't have come to you and asked for this appropriation this year if this grant opportunity wasn't available. So it's just that we have this opportunity, so I'm gonna come ask you for the money. Because I wouldn't be a responsible member of the commission, and I didn't. This basically shortens our timeline significantly.
Lisa, what were to happen if the state doesn't award you this amount?
Then we wouldn't need the funds.
You would need the funds.
We wouldn't need the funds.
Okay.
We have many things we could use it for, but we'd go back to our planning. We would maybe come and ask for the funds for other matches, for other grants that we're applying for, but for this one specifically, this is where we're at right now.
Nancy, how could we appropriate that if we were to make a motion for that, if we knew that they were?
If you wanted to do that yet this year, I think what she's asking for is that we put that money into next year's budget,
Okay.
correct?
Yeah, that's
Correct.
next year's budget.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the expectation is that we would put that money in the capital projects fund and not try to run it through the historic preservations fund. We would handle as one of our capital projects, so
Okay.
the money would capital projects, the grant money would come into capital projects and we'd write the checks from there.
Lisa, when would you know if that grant was approved or not?
You know what, good question. It's due February 1st. I know we find out this spring, but I'll let you know for sure the exact date. Usually with these grants, it's a pretty long lead time. You know, I applied for the CLG grant in September and we found out in December. This one, we'll probably find out sometime in the May, June timeframe. But we would be ready to go because Mike Nolan is because of the grant that we were just awarded, he is already putting bid-ready documents together so that we can go to bid on the project. So we've been able to keep moving things forward. You know, we're kinda got lucky with this, to be honest, because we're in a really good position and we would be able to press go as soon as we got the award.
My last question, Lisa, from you
Sure.
is, long-term, you mentioned in regards to utilizing the building. Your commission would wanna be using that as a long-term facility for meetings and has the commission discussed any potential of sharing of the utilities and things like that long-term if you were gonna use that building? And be housed there for
As
permanent?
part of our appropriation each year, you mean, setting aside part of our dollars? I mean, we could. I guess our intent is that the revenue,
I don't know
our-
how much you're gonna be in there, I guess is what I'm asking.
well,
If it was
we
gonna be like a
definitely would
permanent
like to
building
have
for you?
we'd like to have our meetings there, we would like, I mean, our intent is that the structure generates revenue. So, the marketing, we have a fundraising strategy, we also have written a marketing and business plan. So the goal is that the facility funds itself, really, because we'll have a museum space, like maybe schools can bring field trips through, and some things would be not at no charge, but if I wanted to have a little, like, you know, an organization wanted to rent the space from us to have their own event, or a private event, you know, meet and greet with citizens, for example, so the goal is that the building will support itself through the revenue strategy.
Okay. That's all I have.
Sherry, Nancy, let me ask you guys this. You're requesting this for our 2021-2022 calendar budget, fiscal year budget, which obviously we're doing deliberations on right now. And this week we'll be approving that proposed budget. Our timeline is on February 8th. What does an affirmative vote today here commit us to? I mean, does that in effect supersede the budget process with respect to this amount? Or would this still be subject to the vagaries of the budget process that we're still working on?
I think if you move forward today, we'll put this dollar amount in the capital projects budget, which we're gonna discuss, I believe, this afternoon. We very likely will have fund balance in capital projects, so the money's really there already.
What you'd be committing to today is you'd be pulling the trigger, telling Lisa she could go ahead and apply.
Right,
The grant,
I
knowing
just-
that
yeah.
that's there.
right. She needs to know that she's got the match in order to write the grant. Now, and if we don't get the grant, then the money just stays in our capital projects fund, where it is now. Because I
Yes.
think the important thing is here, we're not moving that money into the historic preservation fund, which wouldn't be an issue if we did, but we're not. So if the grant doesn't go through, that money isn't available without coming back to the board to ask to use some money for something.
Yeah, and I would, typically I wouldn't be terribly supportive of taxpayer dollars for this, but there are two key points in my decision on this would be, one is that we have our entire complex geothermal control and system down there, so we're committed to that building. So the county must maintain that structure and building long-term. So that's kind of a sunk cost as far as I'm concerned. And secondly is the Historic Preservation Commission has an outstanding record of helping other nonprofits and other groups in the county, and they've done tremendous work. So I'm supportive of this. I think it'd be a great step forward for them, and I think it'd be good for Muscatine County.
I'm with you on that line of thought, Jeff. To go off the shirt tail of Santos' question or point, with this being a museum per se, that building is going to have to be climate controlled. You're not gonna just heat it, you're not just gonna cool it to a degree, it's gonna have to be climate controlled. And there's gonna be substantial cost involved in that, okay? Because you're really gonna have to watch your humidity and everything in that building. It's gonna cost way more money to heat and cool that than what you're thinking right now, I can assure you.
Well, I think it depends on what we're willing to accept and what we're not. So we do have several museums around the county that operate as museum spaces, but it's not like going to the Figgy in Davenport, Iowa. So, you know, we are, for example, document control is a whole nother level. And so everything that we do is thoroughly analyzed for what is fiscally doable and fiscally sustainable.
I understand
And
that.
so, you know, we don't have all of the details worked out about how the museum, but, you know, we do we obviously would like to showcase things about the jail and correctional practices, et cetera. Whether those are posters, whether we set up a mock jail cell, do people want us to take heirlooms or artifacts? Yes, we're by no means committing to saying yes to everything, and also there will be an understanding that this museum space is going to be set up differently, most likely, than, you know, we've toured some museums, and museums throughout the county, and so that is one of the first things that we discuss. We don't wanna have, at this point, we're not prepared to say yes to that type of archive system because we don't feel that what we have, we can sustain that cost. So that's not the intent.
And that's what I wasn't sure, because I know the museum does have, you know,
Right.
temperature controls, and you have to go under certain.
Right, and that's not the intent.
So much humidity for different levels.
And we've had concerns about that from the very beginning, and we've done a lot of research on it, we've toured spaces, we've talked with, we've worked with consultants who specifically manage that type of work and investment, and that's not the path for us right now.
Okay. You also have to understand the difference between temperature control and climate control. It is way different.
Yes,
Way different. You know,
so that's also why we have, you know, half a dozen uses in mind for this facility, because we need to use it, it's sitting there, like I said, it already has maintenance costs because of the geothermal system. It's a nice looking structure, I feel it could be used, I feel like it could generate revenue, but we wanna have all options, cause of course we're going to have roadblocks, you know, and maybe we get down the road and say, this museum thing is becoming too hairy, but then, good thing we have all of these other options that we've been researching, so let's press go on one of those instead. Kind of our motto is find a way forward. You know, we find a way to keep pushing the project. If we feel they are good projects that bring significant value to the residents of the county, and a big part of that is the fiscal end of it, then we find a way to move them forward.
So I'm gonna say, I have absolute faith in generally the commission, but specifically you and your efforts to get things done. I've seen with great pleasure the effort and results that you guys have put forth. I like this project. I agree with Scott and Jeff that this is something that we need to commit to. And I wanna vote for it, here's where I'm sketchy. I don't think this is a question for you, Lisa, you've answered all my questions, and
Okay.
like I said, I have other I'm looking at this Capital County project plan, and we've spent $8 million in the last 3 years. We've had to transfer in, what, $2.5 million into that, or is it $3.5 million? 2.5. last year, we had a lot of big ticket projects, the year before and the year before. This year, we've got $100,000, so this is basically, would go in along with the courthouse, looks like exterior lighting and, the keyless entry system in the admin, the jail and so on.
Right.
How confident are we that we're only gonna have $100,000 in capital projects this year when we've had 2 million, 1.8 million, and 3 million in the last 3 years?
Well, because we've completed most of our projects in the last 2 years, and we'll have a discussion, but, you know, staff have had discussion about, is there anything else that we need to deal with? We very likely will have a large project the year after this coming budget with the levy project, but
Sure.
this, I think, gives us a year that we don't have anything major work that needs to be done.
Yeah, and I think this really isn't the, you know, we're not here deliberating that, but, you know, I think we wanna talk about the grader sheds too. Cause put a plan forward for those, and we need to start, we'll talk about that with the county engineer in the budget process, but I see that as a capital need probably, in this next fiscal year. You know, he's currently got a budget in his budget, so it's in the budget today, and the question for this board is gonna be, where do we want those dollars to come from? So.
And we might not get the grant.
Sure.
I mean, I hope.
I think you guys have a great track record of getting what you go for, because
I have missed one, okay, so, and I'll never forget it, and I know the exact dollar amount in which organization didn't award it to me, but there was one grant I didn't get.
So, am I hearing that we're not giving anything up if we vote for this?
So I would make a motion that we, approve or, you know, approve the pursuit of this
Match.
grant, and that we would, the county would be prepared to support it for $53,550.
Well, and I do wanna add that, you know, this project has been discussed for a number of years. When we put up the new maintenance facility, part of that project was to put parking spaces in behind that facility, expecting that we move forward with this, so we've already done that piece of it. So we've moved ahead with pieces of this. This just may get us to creating the usable space now. You know, the concrete's there for parking for this.
All right, I have a motion by Jeff,
Second.
seconded by Doug.
I'd just like
Any
to
further
say,
discussion?
yes, there is. I'd just like to say, I'm gonna vote in favor of this. And I'm really torn on this, I really am, because, we've got a huge project down here in this levee situation that, we're gonna have to really, scrape our nickels and dimes to try to get that to work, because that is, as far as I'm concerned, that's the most important project in this county in decades. But I'm gonna vote in favor of this, simply because of working with you in the past personally and in your group. And you do what you say you're gonna do, and you've never disappointed me yet. And I'm gonna vote in favor of that for that particular reason. You know, it's a lot of dollars. $53,000 is a lot of money, and I don't take it lightly, I can assure you. But I'm gonna support this because of her history.
Thank you very much. We
Completely
appreciate
agree.
it.
Completely agree with Scott.
We appreciate that a lot.
Any further discussion?
Did we have a second?
Yes,
Okay, good.
seconded by Scott. I only have one last
Holiday.
comment before we make our vote,
Okay.
Lisa. When we do, get this approval grant, which I'm sure we will, hopefully, will you be able to come back in with the plans that you plan on
Absolutely.
proposing with Mike that is shared with you? Okay.
Yep, we have actually a string of events that will kick off press releases, and we'll circulate a lot of press.
I'd like to just see what it is before you start the
Yep.
approvals and whatnot.
Yes, absolutely,
That's kind of what I think we would like to at least have,
Yes.
at least for me.
We have rendering, we have a full project plan because I have to have that for the grant application, so, really, even if the grant doesn't get awarded, we're still gonna keep working on this project, so it would be good to give you
Great.
an update of what that looks like anyway, regardless.
And I,
The phases have been presented to the board, it might have been before.
Yes,
Santos
I
was
think
on
it
the board.
was. we have the new renderings with
Well,
like.
if you're
the
doing
new-
these new proposals that you're talking about, and if
Yes.
you decide to not do a museum and you do
Yes,
something else, I think
absolutely.
that would be advantageous for us. to
Yes,
see that.
I would be happy to do that.
Okay, so we have a motion by Jeff, a seconded by Doug, all those in favor?
Aye.
And I vote aye, opposed, 5-0. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank
Get 'em,
you.
Lisa.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is items with the county engineer, Keith White. First item is the discussion and possible action of approval for various utility permits. Keith?
Good morning.
Morning, Pete.
We have, one utility application today from Windstream Iowa Communications of Little Rock, Arkansas. And it's to, basically relocate the phone line in the area of the bridge project we have on Douglas Avenue, just north of Nichols. They're boring and placing a couple ducts, and there's 446 feet in length. And I'm gonna do something unusual. I want to have you just glance at this application. I'm simply gonna call this out, and this is what an application should look like. Okay? It's only 446 feet, you know, it's not a big deal, but they've got their insurance certificate attached there, they've got all of their policies listed, they've got quite a set of plans showing you what they're doing. You can recall with, one larger telecommunication company, all the angst, at least some of you, or if not all of you are on here. We went through with those folks. On a lot of applications, it's multiple calls by our staff. They have to get them to get something other than scratched on the back of a napkin. And, you know, this is a small company, and a lot of them do a good job, but this one just stands up. They did a really nice job on an application, telling us what they're wanting to do and where they're gonna go. And so if we have one in the future where I'm telling you how bad it is, I'm just giving you a reference point. And we do get them that are comparable to this, but I said this is a really simple one, and they've done a fine job, so I recommend approval.
This is impressive.
Keith, with like the examples of these guys redlining everything and showing that, do we have a template that we could ever share with them, kind of identifying what we expect?
I guess I'm gonna say the permit itself, the first two pages calls out what we expect. I said maybe not everybody has an engineering staff, but although I would say every single telecommunications company we deal with has an engineering staff that's paid and prepares their stuff. A lot of those big ones we were running into, they're doing it with grant money. And they're getting paid to do it, so they can either do a good job or a crappy job. So, I'm sure these people were not, but you can see the plans, the Windstream plans, but I see Pierce Services, you know, they use somebody outside of their company that did this. Did a nice job.
Okay, I'll move approval.
Motion by Jeff, seconded by Nathan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Anything else, Keith?
In the world of other, again, not a lot going on out there in the construction world. In the design world, we do have the final parcel on the Douglas Bridge that we'll have you, I'll have the chair sign this morning. The acquisition contract for the final parcel. And we're hoping to get the 60th Avenue, which is the Scott County project. We're hoping to get the last parcel on that this week, so it can get the letting also. So, that's all I have pending. Any questions?
Keith, you mentioned, I think a while back in regards to G28, and we had punch list items after
Yes.
that. Did we get that complete yet?
Punch list, what we have is stuff, it'll wait till spring. I mean, it's mainly seeding, erosion control. A lot of the other stuff that could be done was done. And we do have one section of permanent painting that was not done. It was temporary markings.
Okay, anything else for Keith? Thank you, Keith.
Just gather your signature on the acquisition contract now.
Okay. All right, the next item on the agenda is the discussion and possible action to approve the meeting minutes, January 11th, 2021, regular meeting, and January 12th, 2021, special meeting.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion by Scott, seconded by Jeff. All those in favor?
Aye.
I vote aye, 5-0. Okay, correspondence.
I'll probably just make a brief mention, I guess. We had further correspondence, if you all recall, Muscatine County, and the Island Levy District put in for an EDA grant. There were some questions submitted, I think it were 8 in total or 10. Thanks to our support at Bi-State Commission, our engineers, I know our county engineer was involved. We did get those 8 responses tabulated back up and back to the EDA. So we're in the consideration process, and we hope to hear on that in the next few months.
Okay.
And that was it for me.
Amy, no, sorry. Nathan?
The only thing, in addition, I would note is the, message from Sheriff Reese, about the precautions that we're taking in Muscatine County against any possible unrest, extra security precautions and the like, and I thank you for that.
And, I think the only thing that I had was, emails back and forth between Eric and I and the board in regards to updates that, we were doing in the sheriff's quarters, asking for, final potential updates from pictures. Eric replied to that. I also sent a, email to Christy in regards to her update from COVID, requesting when would the, general public eventually be getting into phase 2 in regards to, where we're at right now. Currently, phase 1 is the first responders, EMS, those that would be most, connected with COVID. And her reply to that was, February, we would be looking at the state potential for general public, which is phase 2 qualifications in regards to when they would be available for the COVID
I
vaccination.
think that was you got phase 1A, B, and C, right?
Yes.
And we're still in phase 1C, you just get to 75 and older, maybe is the
I
general.
can explain it when
Yeah.
I present.
Christine,
It's
all
not
right, all right.
correct,
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was
Yes,
just.
it's
it was
complicated.
it is complicated.
Well,
It
I was
is.
asking in general public, I think is what I was getting at, but if I'm wrong, hopefully you can.
Yeah, I
help
think
me.
general public will be lucky to
That's
see it
gonna
by
be-
But it
summer.
was general public in older, I think
Yeah,
it was,
yeah,
that was what I meant too.
High-risk age groups.
Yes. And, the rest were same thing, the emails from Sheriff Quinn and, the EDA. That's all I had.
I had nothing to note.
I
Yep.
had the one on COVID numbers from Christie, Quinn Reese's email,
Okay,
and, emails from you and Eric
okay.
on the sheriff's quarters updates. That's all I had.
Doug, while we're there, any committee reports?
None.
Okay.
No committee
Scott?
for myself either.
And none for myself? Nathan?
See, I had, Magic and, for our first quarterly meeting, and I also had, Mississippi, what do we call it now, Jeff?
Mississippi
Workforce
Valley
Development.
Workforce Area.
Yeah, we're have to get Catchy
MVWA,
for that.
yeah.
Okay.
I had the same meetings as Nathan, they were both, electronic meetings, Magic quarterly board meeting and the Mississippi Valley Workforce Authority meeting.
Okay, all right, thank you, Jeff. Moving on, number 8, items with the administration office. The first item is the discussion and possible action to authorize 1 additional full-time jail nurse position.
We had talked about this as last week when we were, reviewing the sheriff's office proposed budget for next fiscal year. However, they would like authorization to move forward with that now. And I think there's a couple people here that may want to speak to it, I'm not sure.
As Nancy had said, we talked about this a little bit last week. We do have a hourly number that we have to meet per week to cover those medical needs, staffing hours, so on and so forth. And we're not coming close to those, and we haven't for a while. So that's why that conversation happened with Nancy sometime back about building those numbers in, like we talked about last week.
So with this position, Sheriff, would this get us closer to the, probably not still, I think you said we had like 100 and some hours we had to do, or?
So there's 168 a week, that is mandated by ACH. ACH is our
Yeah.
contractor. We're not coming close to those numbers. We've tried to supplement, with part-time hours. Sometimes, well, all the times, those are difficult to get in, if not impossible to get in. So we're hoping with this addition, will get us the numbers that we need.
So roughly, we'd be full-time staffed at half the requirement. You'd still be planning on part-time or to get to that 168?
Correct. With the 2 full-time staff, would get us closer. We would still rely on those part-timers to cover the difference.
And,
We do have a assistant, don't recall. Medical records clerk. That's a part-time position, but that's consistently 29 hours a week.
and so all those positions qualify under the contract
Yes.
requirements with ACH to maintain?
Yeah, we're,
Threshold, right?
yeah, we're striving to get 168 hours a week. Currently, we have a 40-hour-a-week nurse, and then we try to supplement the rest of those hours, the 29 hours with the medical records clerk, and then the rest of those hours are supplemented with the part-time nursing staff. And that medical records clerk is basically used to file paperwork, scan paperwork, create documents within our EMARP. Had an additional 40 hours, that's gonna give us 80 hours a week, a solid foundation that we can build upon. It's gonna create some competition within that environment too. There's not gonna be 1 full-time nurse, there's gonna be 2. And, so, you know, production, when you have competition with inside of a department, production increases, I think. Really, it's something, it's a needed thing. We're trying to get those 168 hours with part-timers and 1 full-time. When you have part-timers that come in and they're working 15 hours to 20 hours a week, they also accrue benefits at the same rate that they would accrue if they're working 29 hours a week. So those vacation times, those sick times, those personal days, all that time continues to accumulate for a 15-hour nurse the same way that it would accumulate for a 29-hour week nurse. So those aren't necessarily equitable when you look at the 2 positions, but having these 2 full-time nurses will really help us out in the long run, give us what we need.
Thanks for the clarification.
Nancy, how will that affect us budget-wise? For removing some of those?
This
Pardon?
position, we talked, this is built into next year's budget.
It's built into next year's budget for the current year, between vacancies that we've had, dollars that are budgeted that haven't been filled. And frankly, the amount of revenue that the jail's bringing in because of the federal prisoners, this can easily be
Okay.
accomplished.
So I would make a motion that we authorize the jail to add the full-time jail nurse position.
I'd second.
Okay, motion by Jeff, seconded by Scott. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
I vote aye. 5-0. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is action to set a public hearing on a request to rezone approximately 2.74 acres in Fruitland Township from R1 residential district to C1 commercial district for Monday, February 8th, 2021 at 9 a.m.
Second.
Motion by Nathan, seconded by Jeff. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I vote aye. 5-0. Nancy, anything else?
No, I don't have anything else.
Okay. We'll move on to number 9, receive information from county employees.
Good morning, I'm gonna give you my, the updates I normally give for your meetings, and I know Christy Roby Williams is here with Trenton Muscatine Public Health and the email she's been sending out. Here's the information that I have from the state website, for Muscatine County, positive cases, 3,868, recovered is 3,367. Unfortunately, we've had 77 deaths. Of those, underlying is 70, contributing is 7. Our public school districts, our percentage is 13.7. Our long-term care facilities, the state website has 0. Currently, we are monitoring a couple cases with some facilities at this time. I also left you a handout, as there's been much discussion. I'm sure Chrissy will inform you of the vaccines, how things are going. But I did have a handout for you, and maybe that's something that Chrissy can discuss later.
Brent, I have a question about PPE and PPE needs at long-term care and other, is everybody in good shape? I mean, maybe with Christie here too, we're not getting any additional requests, cause I believe you at the emergency management have supplies and they would be available to those in need that couldn't acquire.
Yes,
So we're not hearing any,
from the beginning of this onset, we were kind of caught off guard. We did have the federal government national stockpile that was issued to states. Fortunately, Iowa Homeland Security was wise and purchased a lot. Currently, we do have, we have 6 regions in the state. Muscatine is under Region 5. We do have a warehouse that has PPE stored. I presently have PPE here in the county. The process has been, I have a form that I have sent out to long-term care facilities, emergency response, and they will send that out and request. Again, working with public health, we've had to, at the beginning, prioritize who was receiving this. We just couldn't give it out to everybody. For the period, we've been running very well with no requests being asked. A lot of emphasis with facilities to stockpile and look at what's going on. Eventually, the state's not gonna provide PPE. You know, hopefully we're gonna get to that point where we get the vaccines, we start to get this virus defeated. We're not in this situation, but I'm always in that position where if I hear from public health or I get a request, we are able to meet their needs.
have we reached out, I sit on the mental health board and I know there was some CARES dollars that came to mental health. And the schools and a number of mental health providers have had extraordinary expenses on PPE, and they've asked the mental health region to help support that. So have we reached out to some of those to make sure that, you know, these are government-supported entities, if nothing else. And if we have PPE, I would hope that we're making sure that our schools or anybody that might have a need, that we can help them, cause they're all having budget issues with this, with the extraordinary cleaning and expenses that they're going through, so.
Correct.
Okay.
As the state basically has been providing this, they kind of have some guidelines that they you know, bring down to local emergency coordinators. Here's what you should do. A lot of the times, the state has sent out a 30-day supply. Last month, the 5 long-term care facilities got a 30-day supply of PPE. I received 105 boxes. Those were gowns, masks, gloves, and each long-term care facility was allotted so much. They have sent masks to schools, so we're always in contact with Iowa Homeland Security, or they vice versa, and will notify us of what they intend to do.
My concern in this whole process is anytime you experience a shortage, you know, our supply chains have had an opportunity to catch up. I see them all the time. I see requests that people tend to hoard, and I think we wanna watch that and just make sure that those that need them are getting them. And if we have, PPE that's been acquired, that we get it distributed to those that need it, so it doesn't make sense for them to be buying and spending a lot of money if we've got it, so. Good, I just didn't know if you were coordinating with Christie on all that. Okay,
Do you
very
know
good.
if the local districts have taken advantage of that? The local school districts have taken advantage of this may be more for Jeff, but the grants that were available through the region for PPE and the like?
A number of the local school districts did, but I don't know that all of the school districts did.
Okay.
And we have, Christie has weekly meetings with the school districts, a lot of times where we just are able to talk, and I am participating in those, so we're certainly keeping update with what everything's going on around in Muscatine County.
Brian, do we have an inventory list of the PPE equipment that we have in this building?
I have a list, I will go through again and see what I have.
Okay.
And you use that product to distribute to the entire county or county employees or the goods that you have?
We've been focusing, when there was a strong demand earlier in the year, sat down with public health, we identified frontline care workers, long-term care facilities, and first responders that we were doing this, because we just didn't have enough at the time. Again, we continue to monitor. Last week, I've only received one request from a volunteer fire department, and it was a very small amount. But the emphasis has been to start, and everybody was caught off guard when this started. A lot of them now do stockpile and have their supplies ready.
So, my thought is, do all these facilities realize or recognize then that they could actually contact yourself for product on a quick turnaround basis?
It's basically, it's a 14-day demand, a supply that they need for 14 days to go. We've been doing really well with a lot of the long-term care facilities. When we were hit with the outbreaks at long-term care facilities, I would reach out. We got a lot of disposable, or usable, washable gowns that we were able to use, go with that. Yeah, we're covered pretty well. It's been very fortunate that the state of Iowa has provided PPE. You know, we are able to provide for those who are in a situation. It's not just to give it out just as a stockpile, but it's a need when they have a situation.
Yeah. I just wanna make sure these goods, if we have goods warehoused in the county, I wanna make sure that these goods get to the people that need them, because it may be a situation where these folks in these operations and facilities may not recognize that they're able to make a phone call and have something, some product in very short order. That's my point.
And we also have what's called a Muscatine County Elderly Consortium that we do meet virtually and discuss with the nursing homes. Christie's staff is very aware of, they probably hear first about an outbreak. They're very good about communicating to me, indicating that, I will reach out to a lot of these facilities and what do you need?
Very good. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Brian. Any other county employees? Yep. Good morning.
The Muscatine County Auditor's Office received an official notice just this past Friday from the Eastern Iowa Community College for a public measure that will be a special election to be held March 2nd, 2021. For the Eastern Iowa Community College, they also have a vacancy that they've appointed, and that district will need to put this on the election to fill the vacancy. This will be a District 8, which falls in Muscatine County. So we will have two things on our election ballot. Scott County Auditor is the controlling county commissioner of the elections. 7 counties will hold this special election because a portion of their district is located in the county. So our staff and office, we will be working towards setting up and
And Timmy, this is for the Eastern Iowa Community.
Eastern Iowa Community College. I'm just here to notify you of that
Okay.
for the calendar.
Very good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other?
I have a question. Did you want me to touch base on the phasing now or wait until I present budgets?
It might be
I
good
think it'd be best
before,
for
if
the
you
public
could.
if you do it now,
Right.
would
If
you?
you could right now, I think
Yeah,
that would be
that's
good,
what I
because I
was
think I
wondering.
probably confused them with my stuff that I just mentioned.
It's your job.
That's all right.
So the phasing is very confusing of the vaccine rollout. Right now, the Iowa Department of Public Health is following the COVID-19 vaccine phasing recommendations, I would say the general outline of the CDC. And in that right now, the CDC is phasing out phase 1A, 1B, and 1C. Iowa is then taking a look at that, Iowa Department of Public Health, and they have an Infectious Disease Advisory Council. You might hear like the acronym IDAC. IDAC is the council that's looking at CDC and looking at our state, our individual counties, our collective counties, and how they want to follow that. And then also based off of the actual allocation that Iowa is getting, how to best disperse it and give the allotments. So we're still in phase 1A, and 1A is the healthcare personnel and long-term care facilities. Healthcare personnel and they put out a document that kind of outlines who they would define as healthcare personnel. And you can go on to the idph.iowa.gov website and you can see those. They have those posted publicly to see who their recommendations are. Long-term care facilities are obviously all of our skilled nursing facilities, SNF, some people might call them, nursing homes, but it's also assisted livings. It's also group homes. So we have a lot of dependent adults that live in group homes within our county. So it encompasses all of that. We're still in our department working through 1A. Larger counties are maybe halfway there. Johnson, Polk, big counties, they get more of an allotment, obviously, than smaller counties. Then we've got some smaller counties that are done. They're done, they're ready to move on to 1B, but the state, there's a vaccine shortage order, and we cannot move on to another phase until all of first phase 1A is complete. The state is trying to do it strategic, to roll it out I think, you know, as the public, we're anxious, we're ready, we're tired of being sick, we're tired of the loss. We've all hit our COVID-19 walls. And as public health departments, we just wanna keep pushing it out. We wanna get it in people's arms, we wanna get people vaccinated, but we have to stay aligned with the state's strategy and process. They're really trying to work, everything is being done in real time. I always tell people, it feels like we're in a real life science experiment. We've been trained for this, but now we're in it. And so the state's constantly looking at how it's rolling out, where do they need to adapt, and how do they need to pivot and modify. So right now, long-term care facilities, they're sending out weekly allocations, I think it's like 19,500 vaccines to long-term care facilities. Once all the long-term care facilities get their vaccines in folks' arms, that's their employees and residents, those allotments will start going to the counties that still need that vaccine to get 1A done. So then we can all move on to 1B. The state just released, and this was in my correspondence to you, the state just released what 1B criteria is, or who that is. And so our job now, while we continue to do COVID-19 vaccines, we're actively giving it to folks in 1A, both in our clinic and out in the community and county. We're also planning for 1B and what that's gonna look like. 1B is huge. 1B is going to be essential workforce, which
Yeah,
is,
that's what you were explaining.
That's
to
what I was
me.
explaining.
That's what I called
1B
phase
is
2,
next.
but really that's phase 1B.
yeah,
Okay.
and it's just speaking that, you know, that same language. I think in the beginning, our department was calling it tier 1A, and the state then, we noticed they were calling it phase 1A, so we're like, okay, we're aligning, it's phase 1A. So yeah, there's 3 parts to the rollout of 1A, 1B, and 1C.
So 1B, when is your best guesstimate, if you wanna say, that
That's
would be rolled
February.
out? That would be February.
That's what the state is telling us. That's not my guesstimate, that's the information that I have, but we have not been given a solid date in February.
Yeah.
They did just change the vaccine shortage order to include now 1B, but nobody's gotten allotments for 1B across the state.
Not yet. Okay.
So we're in that planning phase of, we have to sit down and figure out who's all included in 1B in our county, which is going to be 75 plus individuals that reside in our county, and how we're gonna best get communications out to them. And then all of the essential workforce, which is a lot in our county, and how we're going to best get the communications in partnership with those businesses, business, industry, and agricultural industry.
So 1B, to be clear for the general public, is 75 and older and essential workers?
Yes, yep. And there's another clause in there for, a caveat for, medically fragile, but we need to get more definition on that. We're waiting for more guidance from IDAC, that Infectious Disease Advisory Council.
But the bottom line is the need has far outpaced the vaccines we've been allotted as a state.
Correct.
And so the state is having to make choices, you know, IDPH is having to make choices as to who gets it first. They're trying to focus it based on need.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that summed it up very
And I
well.
think people, you know, you got 350 million people in the US and there's what, 1 million doses done? So it's gonna be a small number, small percentage you're gonna get it.
Yeah, and
So
my,
it'll be a while for
yes, yeah.
most people.
And that's my consistent communication is, we're ready for it. For those that are ready to get the vaccine, we're ready for it. We're ready for this crisis to be over. We're constantly in a state of crisis. And so when we are responding to the public, our first space to respond is empathy, because we absolutely get it in real time. And then explain the process to the best of our ability based off of the information the state has provided us, and then the planning we are putting forward to get this disseminated. Our goal is to get those shots in people's arms who are ready for the vaccine.
So logistically, when you talk about the phase 1B and the essential workers, that's a lot larger probably of a group than what you have in 1A.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, you're right.
What plans does your team have, and I don't know if you're working with Brian on that, and how that response is gonna be and where those facilities would be to start utilizing those, vaccinations and, what buildings? Do you guys already have some sort of a long-term plan for that?
Yes, yeah, we have MOUs, in 3 different communities throughout our county to do mass vaccination distribution, in Wilton, West Liberty, and in Muscatine. And through that, it's certainly a collaborative. Right now, we're still trying to figure out who all those businesses are. Businesses can apply to be a provider. So our next goal will be to contact each of the businesses. We've had one conversation thus far with H&I. We would love if businesses could become a provider themselves. They have the resources. If they could pull in the people to vaccinate, that would be awesome. But that's a process for them as well. Working with pharmacies, so on our Board of Health, Karen Harper is a pharmacist, and we've been in conversation. Also, Western Drug has contacted us, and they're ready. They're kind of like, put me in, coach. We're ready to help. Our organizations, our business, we're ready to help.
That was another question I had, was if we're part of our strategy, and public health certainly won't be able to do all
We
this.
can't.
You just can't administer
No,
that many
that's just,
vaccines.
it's a large, work
We know
that
how
we're
good
doing.
trouble you would have in getting flu shots distributed, yet alone, if we get a high percentage of vaccination on this.
Yeah, we have to do it in a collaborative approach as a county. It cannot lay on the public health department's shoulders. We're leaning into the state as well. I've advocated for our county and the rest of the other 98 counties in the state. We need help from a state level. They've rolled out Test Iowa sites. Why not roll out mass vaccination sites? I know that's a lot of planning and logistics on their end. It is on each 99 counties as well. But I think if we do it together, we can get it done better and a lot faster than where we're currently moving, what feels like a snail pace.
I think that looking at seeing, on the news of some of these other states that you see these mass lines of people waiting hours and hours, and, I think if we can learn from those things and say, how do we avoid some of those things, having a little more foresight of saying, do we have, businesses that can provide some of those things that we know can help with the logistics, help identify who's already been vaccinated, so you're not, feeling like you're not meeting all the quotas, and I think that would be good once you start doing that. But I'm glad that you guys are having that plan moving forward, and I think that sets a lot of peace of mind for me and helps with some of the confusion of what 1B and 2
Yeah.
was. But it's the same thing. I understand what you're getting at.
Yep, and our points of dispensing, which is Brian has been in partnership in that and will continue to be, is when we go out to, let's say, Central Middle School being one of our locations, or in West Liberty, one of their school buildings. And I'm trying to think, I think Karen is the only one that's gotten vaccine so far in here for healthcare personnel.
It was a well-oiled machine. I was so impressed. My entire team was so impressed with how we were contacted and the ease, and just kudos. And I had no reaction, by the way, you'll be fine.
And that's part of our training when we're doing, I'm pointing at Brian, when we're doing FEMA training, NIMS training, Eric, I think you've had all that training too. When you do points of dispensing, or you hear them called PODs or pods, you want it to flow efficiently and effectively. And so that's how it's set up. We started in just our public health department. That will expand to larger sites to keep people flowing through. We've also got to control traffic flow to keep social distancing in mind.
Right.
Okay.
Does that help answer? And I encourage you, you've got this packet, I'm not gonna go through in detail, but this is, I know the county has been anxiously awaiting, like, how many vaccines are in people's arms? How many do we have completed? I would encourage you to please look through this. I wanted so badly to release it, but every county public health department kept saying, please put something out. Please, the administrators kept asking, we're asking for more marketing, communications with the general public, and I see the state is, they're doing better. They're doing better, they're getting out some more communications.
Yeah, this has been a challenge from day one with the public's right to know versus the individual rights. It's a real balancing act with HIPAA privacy and all of that we have to really maintain. So I don't envy your position.
Okay. Thank you, Christy. Yeah. Any questions? Okay, any other comments from the county employees? Okay, moving on to number 10, review comments from the general public. If there's anyone on from the public online, please state your name and address and your concerns or questions. Hearing none. I don't know if we have anybody on, you're unmuted. Okay, seeing.
This is Chrissy, there's nobody else on.
Okay, thank you, Christy.
Welcome.
Okay, seeing nothing more, we're gonna move on to, do we wanna take a recess or are we good? Okay,
5 minutes. you know.
all right. We will go ahead and take a 5-minute recess. As of now, the meeting is adjourned and we will go back into meeting at 10:21.